Hey everyone, welcome back to the iHeart Podcast. My name is Jonathan North, and this is the second episode of the show. Like I said in the previous episode, as we're still in the beginning stages of the podcast, I just wanted to take this time to introduce new listeners to the shows that led me here, and today's episode is all about the show that basically inspired this entire podcast, iHeart Animation. I've always loved animation, and reviewing animated movies and TV was what eventually led me to where I am today in this whole online reviewing world. I started out writing about a few of my favorite things on my personal blog, which included reviewing some animated movies and television, and eventually I began to seek out more people who shared my interests. In around 2012-2013, I started discovering podcasts, and I eventually found the Rotoscopers Animation Podcast. Morgan, Mason, and Chelsea were always fun to listen to, and I loved hearing them talk about some of my favorite films, and they even introduced me to movies I'd never heard of. I eventually realized that the Rotoscopers also had a YouTube channel as well as a website where they reviewed a lot more than just a few things that were featured on the podcast. And then in 2014 they were looking for new writers. I applied, I got the job, and I started writing for them in January of 2015, which is now over 4 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long already. Eventually I started to get to know other writers on the site, and one of them, Rachel Wagner, who you'll meet in an upcoming episode, eventually invited me to her YouTube channel as a guest on her podcast, as she started watching one of my favorite TV shows, Doctor Who. With Rachel's encouragement, I eventually started my own YouTube channel, which I eventually brought to focus on animation, which I am now spinning off onto its own podcast, which really kind of brings this whole thing full circle. Okay, now that you have the backstory, let's get into this episode. One of my favorite episodes of iHeart Animation that I've done so far was for an early episode where I invited my friend Sol to join me, and we talked about one of her favorite childhood films, Barbie Mermaidia. It was a movie that I would never have even thought to watch myself, and I don't really plan to watch it again, but the fact that she had grown up watching it made for a really interesting discussion and ended up being one of my favorite episodes.
So I guess to start out, why don't you introduce yourself and just introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are.
Hello everybody, my name is Sol. I have a YouTube channel called Animation Geek where I do, animation reviews as well and just other kind of geeky content like Disney stuff, and so if you want to check that out, that'll be nice. But I'm super excited because we're going to talk about a film that it's, interesting.
So why don't you kind of explain what this movie is about and why you chose it?
Well, so growing up, a lot of people, I'm from 97, so I did grow up with some of the Disney films like the Renaissance, but for me personally, for example, my favorite film of all time is The Emperor's New Groove and Hercules. So those are like more towards the end, right? And so, I do like The Lion King, I do like Beauty and the Beast, but I didn't grow up with them. I don't have that nostalgia to it. The movies that I did grow up a lot were more like the 2000s, like, Goofy movie and things like the Extremely Goofy movie and the Barbie movies. I did grow up, I've probably seen them all. Not the recent ones. I've seen some of the recent ones because they're on Netflix, and I was like, oh, I'm curious to see this. But I vividly remember loving The Princess and the Pauper, 12 Dancing Princesses, something like that, and Mermaidia. Those were like my favorite ones. I did watch all of them. But something that was very appealing for me about the Barbie movies was, they were magical and I don't know, I think they were like empowering in some ways. Nowadays, when I've seen the most recent Barbie films, they try to make it more edgy and like, whatever, video games. And I think that's cool. But what I really like about the original ones is that there was a fairy tale kind of vibe to it, which is very magical and like transports you. And I don't know, it just kind of has that Peter Pan vibe that the new ones are enjoyable, but I don't think they're like, magical and like they give you that vibe. I don't know. So yeah, I picked this movie because I haven't seen it in like 10 years. So I was very curious, like, does it hold up? Is it just the nostalgia? Can I talk about it with someone who has never seen it, so definitely doesn't have the nostalgia to it? And yeah, I'm interested to talk about this.
So can you explain a little bit what the movie is about for people who don't know?
Well, this is actually the sequel to Fairytopia. And to briefly kind of sum up the first one, we have the main character called Elena. I always have a problem pronouncing her name. And she's a fairy without wings, and she goes to this quest and saves her people, and she gets wings at the end. So the second one is she has wings already, and she has to go through, again, another quest to save one of his friends, who is like the prince of Mermaidia. And there's this, the villain pretty much is this, the villain from the first movie, who her name is, what's her name again?
I wrote it down. Let me see.
uh,
Laverna.
Laverna, and she has these like two assistants, three of them, that are like the fungi, and pretty much they have to find this berry, and that's why they kidnap the prince of Mermaidia, and they make him like, okay, like, where's this berry? Because the berry supposedly is gonna make Laverna like, undestroyable or something like that. And the prince has to, kind of agree, because they have this poison that if they drop it on the water, it's going to kill everyone in Mermaidia pretty much. So intense. And so, what's her name? Elena goes on this quest to save him. And, there's a lot of, I don't want to give everything away because people want to watch that. But it's kind of, you kind of typical story with like adventure. There's a lot of like puzzles and things like that. She has to go underwater. There's some sacrifices that have to be made. It has a lot of themes of friendship, and that's pretty much the story overall, I think.
So between from when you were little till now, did you think it held up?
Well, my first reaction because I rented this movie, right? I was like, I'm going to support Barbie. And so the first thing I thought, I don't know if because my screen was big or what, I was like, oh my gosh, the quality is awful. Oh my God, it's so crappy. But I always knew the first Barbie movies from, my generation, at least, they were horrible animation. I recently watched, again, the Swan Lake one. And that was one of the very first ones. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's kind of creepy because they have no emotions when they move their face. It's kind of creepy. Like, the guy's like, I'm so sad. It's like, no. But yeah, watching that, I was like, okay, try to like focus more on the story, try to focus more on the characters. But definitely the animation is horrible. Like, and for me, it's not of like an excuse. I mean, of course, back in the day, their animation wasn't as advanced as nowadays, right? But like, I compare it, Toy Story was made around the same time, and it was like way better animation. And I understand the budget was different. These movies didn't go to theaters, but I don't know, I feel like they could have, you see the grass, and it's just like, I took an animation class in high school, and I felt like I know I could do those things, like very basic stuff. At times it felt distracting, but I guess once you get more into the story and stuff like that, you kind of, I feel like it's the most, once you're underwater, I think it's better. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I thought that the animation was okay. The rendering and like the characters and objects themselves, everything had that old 3D animation look that everything looks like it's made out of plastic.
Yeah.
However, I kind of got over it because I reminded myself, this is about Barbies, and Barbies are made out of plastic.
That's true.
So I guess it was better than if it was supposed to be like real people. Like if it had been supposed to be about real people in a real environment, I think maybe I would have felt like being more harsh on it. But since everything was supposed to be made out of plastic anyways, I was like, I guess it's fine.
That's true. Let me see. So something I really liked about this film is the background music. Back in the time, have you seen Peter Pan?
The old version, the Disney version?
The animated Walt Disney version.
When I was a kid, I saw it. I haven't seen it recently. Okay,
so the music and the background music in those old films, like even Snow White, if you watch the old Disney movies, like they have this, every moment has like music, and it's very like, I don't know, there's something that I miss that today's films don't have. There's like a charm to it. And I noticed this in this film, like you could hear at the beginning a lot of background classical instrumental music, and I think that like it's very lovely. It's very rare to see it, and I think it transports you more and gives you that charming feel. Did you notice anything with the soundtrack or anything?
Not really. I thought it was kind of generic.
Yeah, I see. So do you want to talk about the story? What do you think of the story?
It was actually better than I expected
Oh,
because
okay.
I was expecting something like super cheesy because in the end, this movie is technically made to sell dolls to children.
For sure.
So I was expecting kind of the lowest quality story possible.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it wasn't horrible surprised me.
I
I,
do find it
I
entertaining, yeah.
yeah, I mean it's not something that like I'm definitely going to go rewatch this again and
No.
show it to everybody, but it was not something that I felt like it was a chore to sit through. Like it
Mm-hmm.
went by just fine. It was like, oh, okay, it was a decent story.
I
It
don't know.
was it was
I think
fine.
it's intriguing to see, like, kind of figuring out the puzzles and like how are they gonna get to this next obstacle. Like, for example, in the scene where there was like the fire, I was nervous. I was like, I know they're gonna like end up leaving and stuff like that, but I was like anxious. I was like, oh my god. I don't know. I think they did a good job at least with that, setting the stakes, stuff like that.
The way the story was put together reminded me of how a video game story goes. Like,
Oh
and actually in
yeah.
both movies, because I watched the first one because
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Wagner told me that, oh, you should watch the first one too because this is a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did watch both of them. I don't think it was really necessary to watch the first one.
Yeah, because they do like a
But
recap in the beginning of the second one, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
but both of them felt like the plots of video games because like in the
Mm-hmm.
first one, there were all the 7 kidnapped princesses that and she had to go on a quest to rescue them and find all these objects, and it was the
Yeah.
same with this one. Like you had to go to each different place and do a different thing, and like if this was the plot of a video game, I think it would actually sell really well. Like
Yeah.
I could imagine this as something like if they did like 1980s pixel graphics with this,
Mm-hmm.
I probably would play it because it was like a good video game story. It was
That's
simple enough
super
that
interesting. Yeah.
you can follow it, and at the end there's a big boss battle, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, it's a little anticlimactic at the end because
Yeah.
the final comeuppance for the villain happens
Mm-hmm.
when the characters aren't there. But for the most part, it felt like a video game, and I liked that about it.
What was the scene or moment that you were like, oh, okay, this is kind of nice, or that you remember, or like, I don't know.
I actually liked that the one mermaid was kind of mean. I think her name was Nori.
Yeah.
She was like not that nice of a person, and I
No, she was
actually liked
awful.
that because like with something like this for little kids, you expect everybody's going to be all nice and love each other
Mm-hmm.
and show
Yeah.
how you're supposed to treat each other. But no, she was jealous and catty, and
Mm-hmm.
they had to learn to work together, and I liked that about it.
Yeah, and it wasn't fast. Like it took time for like them
Yeah,
to
it
like
did.
start liking. So that was nice. I did like that aspect. I was gonna talk about her because I was like, dang, she's like horrible. Like it's like, why you gotta be so mean? It's like, you're
Yeah,
gonna come back here. No one wants anything to do with you. I'm like, okay. And when she starts raising her, I was like, oh my gosh, this girl. But talking about characters, I personally love Bibble. I thought he's so silly. And like when I was a kid, I used to do an impression of him, and it was something like like he talks like that, like it's super weird. And I love it when he's eating those berries and changing his voice. I was like living for that moment. I remember very vividly owning the DVD of this movie, and so there was like an extra feature where you can play like a game with Beeble, and like he could try different like voices and stuff like that. So it was like I have like a nice memory of that with him, and I don't know, I did find him funny and weird at the same time. And I would notice that sometimes he would say kind of like the Minions of back then in a way, but more enjoyable for me at least. He sometimes said words in English. I heard him one time say a word in Spanish, so that's very interesting. I don't know. What did you think of Bill?
I didn't like Bibble. I thought he was annoying.
Not
I
for
think
everyone. I accept
I
that.
I think that he is one of those characters that they add in mainly for little kids. Like
Yeah.
last Christmas I watched the Barbie Christmas Carol with
Mm-hmm.
Rachel,
Yeah.
and in that version there was a cat that I did not like.
Oh
And
no, that one is so annoying. Yeah.
I felt like this was sort of the equivalent of that cat, as like a side character that's
Yeah. All the Barbie
kind of
movies have the side
unnecessary to the
character.
plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
And
think that recently... sorry, continue.
when I was watching it, though, I realized I've seen that character before. I've never seen any of these Barbie movies before, but I've seen that Bibble character.
Yeah.
He's a meme. Like, there's a
really?
meme that I had seen before that
No way.
I think it's from the scene where he's singing, and like the captions on the meme talk about like a person singing a song when they were like 7 or 10, and it's usually like a song that a 7 or 10-year-old shouldn't be listening
Yeah.
to. and I've seen that, and I didn't know what that thing was. I thought it was like an ugly baby version of Kelly from Monsters Inc.
That's so funny.
Because the colors are similar.
That's true.
I thought it was somebody's weird fan art that had been turned into a meme. But then when I started watching this, I was like, it's that hideous meme creature.
Wow, I didn't see. I'm not very familiar with memes, so like I never saw that. But like now, I want to kind of look for it. What did you think of the main like hero, Lena?
I thought she was fine. She was. I don't know. I don't want to say boring because she wasn't exactly boring, but she didn't have too much of a complicated personality, and she didn't have a whole lot to do other than like rescue the prince. And like her biggest thing was like the thing where she had to decide whether she wanted to trade her wings for a tail, which I did think that they handled that pretty well, and they made it like a believable choice. Like it was kind of distressing for her, and I thought that they did that well enough. But other than that, it was just like she was fine. She's not like super memorable to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. She was like, okay, all right. Like there wasn't like a huge arc or anything to her. But what I was gonna say, I forgot. I was gonna mention Bibble. I remember what I think they do with these films with the side characters for the kids to buy the plushie toys, because I remember wanting the Bibble plush toy so bad, and I think I even had it. I don't remember, but like I think that's the point, to make it cute and like fun. I think that's more for like the kids to later purchase it. I think that could be a reason for them. Yeah, that was Bibble. That name. I was surprised with the voice work. I don't know, not everyone, but I like the voice of Lena. I like the voice of the friend. I think the person who does Bibble, it's creative. The only person that I felt was, oh my gosh, so annoying, but maybe what was the point was, you know, the girl who is following them at the beginning, and she's like, the prince needs your help, blah, blah, blah. Like, she has this very, like, annoying voice. Oh my gosh, her eyelashes were huge. I just remember that. But what do you think of the voice work? Anything that you... Meh?
For the most part, I liked all the voices. They were mostly fine. Like the characters were all fine, and I think the voices helped them be better than I expected them to be. Because as far as I can tell, like with the 2 Barbie movies that I've seen now, they have decent actors come on to play the voices, and I think that helps set them higher than other direct-to-video things that are just trying to sell toys to kids.
Yeah,
I think they put more thought into these movies than is probably necessary, which I think is a good thing for anything like this. More thought than necessary is always better than just trying to get something out there as quick as possible.
And how would you compare this to, say, for example, the Tinkerbell movies? You know, have you seen those yet?
No, I haven't seen those yet.
Because those are also safe movies, you know? And I feel like they were like a similar concept in a way. I mean, I think the Tinkerbell ones have a way better animation, like, but I understand they were like by a bigger studio later on, you know.
Yeah, I've seen clips, so I know that they do look like they have a much bigger budget, and I've heard people rave about a couple of them, saying that they're way better than they ever expected them to be. So I'm planning eventually to watch those for this series, but no, I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, well, if you ever want to collaborate on the Pirate Fairy one, that was my favorite one. So I was gonna say, okay, so there's this one scene in the movie I was super confused, because you know when they go to the Oracle and they show where the guy is, and they're like, oh, he's above water, how is he gonna survive? And then the other one is like, no, it's actually underwater. And so they go there, but it doesn't look like it's underwater. Like if you look up, there was like a sky. So I'm very confused. Like, was it underwater?
I didn't get that either. I was wondering about that too. I kind of just passed it off as one of those weird fairy tale things. Like I think SpongeBob does something differently. Like they have water underwater, like they have lakes and stuff underwater, which doesn't
Right.
make any sense.
No.
I just was guessing that maybe that was the case for this too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That part confused me because when they're about to go to like the geyser thing part, they're like, what is that? How they say it? The only way to get there is if we go underwater, and it's like, but when they get there, it's like above water. I don't know. But that was the only part that like threw me off. But besides that, oh, I have a question. Why is the bad woman in the villain in this like fungi place? Because I don't remember the first one that much.
I can't remember. I
Okay.
only rewatched this one. It's been like 3 weeks since I saw
Oh,
the first
okay.
time now,
I
so
got you.
it was very forgettable.
Okay. I mean, this is also an argument for The Little Mermaid, for Finding Nemo, for every movie where there's people talking underwater. How are they supposed to like talk when there's water there and like eat? And that's something like I know I shouldn't be thinking of, but the entire time I'm like, how are they speaking? Like if I go underwater, I'm like, oh, I choke, like I don't know. That's something that distracted me. But I guess,
Magic.
yeah,
That's
thinking
all.
Mermaid magic, and I don't know. Also, like the algae thing that they have to breathe underwater, something like it's also in Harry Potter. I wish they gave you like at times like, okay, you can be this long with this algae, so that can also give it more stakes. I think that would be more interesting than just being like because I feel like they were there for like 24 hours or something like that. It would feel like for a long time. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you think too hard about it, you're going to pick it apart.
Exactly. That's the thing with this film. It's like you don't have to think much about it because although there's this stereotype that animation films are for kids, they're not all of them. But I do think this one in particular, it is targeted towards more kids. Doesn't mean like adults can enjoy it, but I think when they were making it, they were thinking more for kids. So they were not thinking, let's give it a very deep character development and like an arc, and it's more of like how can pretty colors and fun story and a good message.
With this one, I think that they were making it for kids, but I think they kept in mind that adults are probably going to watch it with their kids, so they tried not to make it too inane.
Yeah,
I think that was probably the reason behind most of the things.
Yeah, I've seen films that are definitely just made for kids where you're like, oh my. Like for me personally, I think Captain Underpants, for example, is just for kids. My opinion, the humor.
I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, let's just say that very potty humor, very slapstick. Like. Maybe some adults might enjoy it, but it's not my humor. With this one, I did find myself more involved, and I didn't feel like, oh, I shouldn't be watching this. I was like, okay, no, this is like a fun adventure. Like I'm invested in this somehow. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is the best film ever, but I was, invested in the story. So what would you rate this film, knowing everything we have discussed?
Like, are we doing 5 stars?
I don't like 5 stars. I personally like 10 more, like 1 to 10. I think that's, I don't know, more specific.
I think out of 10 stars, I probably would give it 5 because it was very average.
Okay, I agree. I think I'll give it a 6 because I have the nostalgia to it, I think.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I was watching it and I was like, wow, it's been like 10 years, but there were some things that I remember perfectly and some things I was like, I did not remember this at all. So that was very interesting to see like what my 10-year-old self was like. Oh, this is my favorite part, and some parts I was like, no idea. But yeah, I think I'd give it 6. Of course, I have the nostalgia to it, but of course, if you compare it to films like Pixar's films, WALL-E or something, of course it's not. But I see it as sort of like the purpose of the film, like why it was made, and like. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. Like, I feel like not all films should be comparing the same way, Like, for example, you're not going to compare, I don't know, WALL-E to this because they're made for different audiences, different purposes, different objectives. And so, that's why I brought up the Tinkerbell ones because I think they were made with the same ideas, you know, for like younger audience and just kind of like maybe sell stuff. But yeah, I think a 6 is a good number for me. I think I had fun. I think the biggest no-no for me was just animation. I was like, this is so distracting.
Yeah.
But once you get into it, it just gets better. But it was super interesting to see it after 10 years. Because I remember loving this one. I would rewatch it all the time. Again, like I owned it. So it was super interesting to see it again and be like, wow, okay, so like, dang, you didn't know about animation back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. I don't regret it.
Technically, in the grand scheme of my life on YouTube, iHeart Animation is still relatively new, but it's still one of my favorite things that I do. I just love watching and talking about all sorts of animated media, and I love discovering new things to watch and share with people. I'm really excited to keep doing that both on YouTube and on this podcast. I think that from here on out, my solo reviews will be kept as videos for YouTube, but when I have guests, they will probably become podcast episodes. Like I've said, everything's an experiment at this point, and I'm just seeing what works. And speaking of seeing what works, in this episode I've decided to try something that I've never done before. I always like talking with Sol, and she's always fun to talk to about movies and animation, so I thought it would be fun to do a little Q&A with her, to introduce her to new listeners and talk about some of her favorite movies and animation. I'm still experimenting with the format, but it was really fun to try this out with Sol, and I thought it made for another great conversation.
So I put together a list of questions, kind of reminiscent of the Catch and Fire segment on Rotoscopers, but
I'm excited.
my own version of that. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to know, like, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, where do you work? Do you have any pets or hobbies? Things like that.
Well, my name is Sol, which is actually sun in Spanish. If you can tell by this accent, I'm Hispanic. I'm from Argentina, but now I've been living in the US for 5 years. And I'm a student in college studying film, like media production, things like that. But my true passion is actually acting and theater. So I do a lot of acting and stuff outside college. So that's me.
Okay. So, like, the main thing that I wanted to do this was, like, this is basically a movie podcast. So
Yeah.
a lot of this is about, like, entertainment stuff. So what is your favorite movie?
Okay. It does have to be animated. Can you tell me? Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you my favorite movie that is not animated. It's probably My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And my two favorite animated films are Hercules and The Emperor's New Groove.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've covered a couple other questions that I had later. Was favorite animated movie, favorite Disney movie. So you've covered those now. And what is your favorite TV show?
Okay, so growing up, I would tell you, animated or not animated?
Whatever. Like, I have questions that can cover anything.
Okay.
So you can just say what you want, and then I'll cancel those.
Okay, cool. So not animated, I always go to bed watching Friends. So I really like Friends. A show I've been really liking a lot on Netflix. It's called One Day at a Time. It's about a Cuban family. It's a sitcom. It's really funny. Really, it's a great mixture of seriousness and comedy, but it talks about really relevant topics. And I think it's really great. I highly recommend. And the new season is coming out next month, so I'm super excited. But yeah,
I actually have been watching that too. I'm trying to get through
season
2, so I'll be ready for season 3.
Nice. Yeah. And then I used to like a lot How I Met Your Mother. I just kind of like what else, what's something that show, that 70s show. I just like The Big Bang Theory. I like sitcoms.
Yeah.
A lot.
I like a lot of sitcoms too.
Yeah, I'm not much of a drama person. The most dramatic thing I've probably seen is like Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. And then animated. Growing up, I really liked Jake Long, Recess, The Emperor's New Groove TV show, Fairy Odd Parents. And recently, I watched the whole show with my boyfriend, Avatar, The Last Airbender, and I absolutely loved it. 100%. Like, I know it's meant to be like a kid's show, but I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I recently watched the first season with my cousin. We were going to try and finish it, but we didn't get it finished. We watched the first season, and we loved it.
Well, I must tell you, the first season is, for me, the worst one out of the three. I think it starts very slow. Yeah.
But I still really liked it, so...
Yeah, it's still good, but I think it's the one that goes, like, the slowest, and it's just kind of a little bit, like, fillers. But season 2 and 3, oh, so good. So good. Love them. So, I watched season 1, and, like, it took a while to finish it, but season 2 and 3 was just in a week. Like, it's so fast.
Okay. So, you have a favorite animator or artist or, like, somebody who makes these movies?
Well, I know everyone says this guy, but Glenn Keane, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I like The Little Mermaid, the movie, but for me, what really gets me emotional, the song when she's singing Part of Your World, the way she's animated and her facial expressions is like nothing I've ever seen in other films. Like, she's showing so much emotion in her facial expressions, and you can really tell how sad and frustrated she feels and how badly she wants this. And I think it's done in a beautiful way, like every little detail from her emotions to it just feels so real, and it's just so compelling, and that for me, I think it's why it's my favorite animator, just for that scene, honestly, because it's such a magical moment for me. That some films that I watch is like, I feel like this character didn't show me the emotion. And I'm an actress, so that's a big thing with me. Like, I really care about characters' expressions and like movement and things like that. So that's a big deal for me. So seeing that scene for me is the epitome of great animation.
Yeah, totally. He's a great one.
And I'm excited for his film that he's gonna do with Netflix. So that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, they've got so many good animators and movie makers working on animated films and TV series for Netflix. I'm so excited to see what they come up with in the next few years. Okay, what was the first animated movie that you remember seeing as a kid?
Ooh, that's a great question. First animated film. Well, I'm pretty sure this is not my first one, but the first one I remember going to theaters, it was Finding Nemo. I remember like that super vividly, and we watched that one later so many times, and I still think it's a phenomenal film. Like, I feel like the animation is one of Pixar's best, like portraying the ocean, which is one of the most massive things ever, and like doing it such a realistic and an immersive way. I remember really enjoying that film. I was a bit scared of the beginning when they eat the mom. And I also remember one of the first films I watched, it was a lot of the Barbie films, because I was obsessed, and I still love them. I actually went to Target, because my dream is to collect at least the ones I really like them, and one day give them to my sister, and when she has a kid or something, and like introduce them. That's the dream. But I really, really enjoy those. But yeah, as a kid, I grew up a lot with Disney, a lot at home. Not much with the obscure era, like not with Pinocchio. I didn't like any of that. Those scared me. Dumbo. I remember my grandma gave me Dumbo one time, and I was like, I don't want to watch this again. It's too scary. But as a kid, I didn't watch that many movies. It was more of like cartoon shows. I watched a lot of Disney Playhouse and things like that. So yeah, just the first film I remember watching in theaters was just Finding Nemo.
So, what is your favorite animation studio?
That's a great question. As of now, I think I'm between Disney and Pixar. I think I'm liking Pixar's content a bit more right now, like slightly. Just when they did Coco, I was like, I'm sold.
Yeah.
You know, but I also really enjoyed DreamWorks. Not its recent, like I liked DreamWorks when it was the Shrek era and How to Train Your Dragon era. Like I don't like what they've been doing recently, and Boss Baby, Trolls, and all their latest Boss Baby. I just don't like their recent stuff at all. But I really like the old DreamWorks, and I'm hoping they come back. I think Blue Sky is really good as well. Sony, it's not a great studio for me. I mean, it has its ups and downs. I think.
Yeah, it's like Sony is so weird. They make the Emoji Movie one year, and then they
do the Spider-Man. It's crazy. Let's talk about a comeback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of another studio. Oh, well, the Illumination Studios. I actually really like the first two Despicable Me movies. Actually, the second one I love. One of my favorite films, actually. But the third one, I despise it with a burning passion. So, and I mean, I dislike Life of Pets. I dislike. Well, I haven't seen The Grinch, but I'm probably not gonna like it. But so Illumination is kind of not going well for me right now. They have that one movie I really like, but yeah. But yeah, I would say my favorite one is either Pixar or Disney.
Yeah,
it just really depends of the time period. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, what is your favorite obscure animated movie? Something that not a whole lot of people know about.
Yeah, probably Barbie.
Yeah, I guess that counts.
Well, this is the thing. They suck. Like, if I watch them now, the animation is horrible. But I'm just very, like, I have a great connection with them. But I feel that, there's this great film. The Bratz films, great. Bratz Rock Angels, yes. And then Barbie Goes to Jamaica, yes, 100%. It's only 40 minutes, but it's on YouTube and you should watch it. It's great. Highly recommend. I actually won that film. When I was little, you went to McDonald's and the Happy Meal was this CD, with DVD, sorry. With one side, it was a Max Steel movie, and then on the other one, it was this My Scene movie. And it was great. I'm just going to say that. But those probably are, I don't know, that's just my childhood, I guess.
Okay, so my last three, you kind of already answered the first one, which is what is your favorite Disney movie? But I also wanted to know, what is your favorite Disney princess and or prince, and your favorite overall Disney character?
Great questions. I love Rapunzel so much. I really like Tango, and I just like she's quirky and relatable, and she's blonde like me. She is very creative like me. I just relate to her a lot, I feel like. And then Mulan is great. I like them all, honestly. It's just I feel like they will have their own special thing, but I think the ones I relate the most is Rapunzel, and I think also Pocahontas is great. That hair, that song.
Yeah.
And she's, I was talking this with a friend. My dream is to one day have a Latina princess. I'm Hispanic, I'm Latina. So it's actually really sad to think how many Hispanics are in the United States and there's still no Hispanic princess. We have Mulan, we have Pocahontas, we have Tiana, we have Jasmine, all represented. We have Moana even, and it's kind of crazy that we still don't have a Latin. I mean, I know a lot of people say Elena of Avalor, but like, first of all, it's a kids show.
Yeah.
It's not even a full film, and it's very targeted to kids. And it's a bit. I was a bit like I was talking with my friend she's from Mexico. She almost cried when she found out that there was going to be a Latina princess. She was like literally sobbing. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" And then she finds out it was a kids show, and she was devastated because. For her, she always has looked up to the Disney princesses, and to be on the other side would be so amazing. And when she found out it was just going to be a kids show, that honestly, the Avalor doesn't even exist. It's not an actual country. Yeah. And there's this big stereotype in the United States that all Hispanics are Mexicans. And no, like people from Colombia are different from Argentinians, from Venezuelans. We're all so different from one another. And so there are hundreds of wonderful stories to tell. So there's definitely the material there. And for me, when I watched Coco, I was so proud. I was so happy. It was such an important film to be made because it does celebrate a culture in such a wonderful way. And so my dream is one day to have a Latina princess. I don't care what country. It's just as long as they don't have any negative stereotypes and they don't have her like a sombrero eating tacos and arriba, like, you know.
You should audition. You should be the next.
I would love to. That's actually one of my dreams, to one day voice a Disney character. Doesn't matter. Well, just any animated character. I don't care if I only have 2 lines. I just say, "Look over there." I would be happy. Like that's my life would be fulfilled.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do that too. But you'd be like perfect. You should be the first.
Oh, thank you. I would love that. Actually, my friend, she's an illustrator. She's in college right now, but she actually has this really cool idea that I'm not going to say because I don't want anyone to steal it if they hear this, but she will want to pitch it to Disney as a short film, and it's based on like a legend in the Hispanic culture, and it's super cool. So if they do that, oh my gosh, I was like, sign me up. I will do it for free, honestly. Like,
yeah. Okay, so is Rapunzel your favorite Disney character, or do you have a favorite character beyond the princesses?
Beyond the princesses, I relate to Cusco a lot. No, I'm not spoiled or bratty, but I just like his humor a lot and how original he is, how like crazy he is. I just relate to him a lot. Growing up, I loved Stitch. Before he was cool, just saying. I'm a very like outgoing personality, kind of, you know. I don't mind making an embarrass of myself in public. I will start dancing in the most random places. So I feel like Stitch really, I can relate to him. And I also really like Hercules. His song "Go to Distance" is my favorite Disney song because it talks all about, you know, fulfilling that dream. And as an actress myself, I look at a lot of obstacles constantly. It's like, oh, I will never get that role and things like that. And it's a lot of hoping and things like that. So I relate a lot to him. I love Edna Mode. Edna Mode is up there, definitely. I can relate to her. She's tiny and she is extra like me. There's a lot of ground. So I think probably my top would be Edna Mode and Wally. I love Wally. Oh my gosh, yes. Wally's like probably one of my most favorite characters. It's probably Edna Mode and Wally. That's it. Yeah. Wally, wow, I love him. He's just so cute and like, oh my gosh, yeah. There's so many good ones.
Okay, well that's all my questions for now. I'm still like working on this list of things. Figure out like something that I can ask everybody that comes on, but that's what I have for now. So thanks for coming back and
no problem.
If you'd like to see more from Sol, I'll have a link in the description to a video she and I did for her YouTube channel. She and I talked all about the new Disney version of the Nutcracker, and that was basically a podcast unto itself. So if you're interested, you should definitely check that out. Next week will be the final introductory episode as we're diving into the Disney Movie Marathon. This is kind of an offshoot of iHeart Animation, but just focusing on the Disney canon. My cousin Sarah will be joining me for a lot of these, including this first episode covering Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I'm really excited to get this series restarted, so I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.